Dear students, let me welcome you at our department. I hope you will enjoy your journey in it and find it very fruitful. Let me first introduce myself. I am Professor Eman Ahmed Zaky, Professor of General, Behavioral, and Developmental Pediatrics and Clinical Genetics. The topic of my lecture is modes of inheritance and chromosomal aberrations. In our practice, we are confronted with many cases like this child. The caregivers will come to you and ask, "What is wrong with our little angel doctor?" After examination, you will find the child is suffering from multiple congenital malformations of a specific pattern, global developmental delay, and muscular hypotonia. You will ask yourself, is this condition peculiar? Does it have a name? After my lecture and face-to-face session, you are supposed to be able to answer such questions. By the end of the first part of my lecture, you should be able to know what is genetics and what is a gene, recognize the different types of genetic disorders, knowing what is multifactorial inheritance, and recognizing examples of non-traditional inheritance. Now, what is a gene? A gene is the segment of DNA, the molecule that stores the code for building living bodies. There are many functional types of genes. One of them is structural genes that are responsible for polypeptides and protein synthesis. Knowing that proteins include enzymes, hormones, adhesion molecules, receptors, transporters, and many others makes you able to imagine how crucial the functions of genes are for life. On the other hand, genetics is the science of heredity that deals with resemblances and differences of related organisms resulting from the interaction of their genes and the environment. It was first introduced by the British biologist William Bateson in 1905. Types of genetic disorders include single gene disorders, chromosomal aberrations, disorders due to multifactorial inheritance, and disorders with non-traditional inheritance. This is a simple diagrammatic representation of the cell to show you the DNA within the nucleus that, when altered or mutated, could be responsible for the occurrence of chromosomal or single gene disorders. On the other hand, it shows the special type of DNA within the mitochondria that, when altered or mutated, will be responsible for the development of mitochondrial disorders. Now, it is time to know something about multifactorial inheritance. Genetic disorders may be complex, that is to say, multifactorial, or polygenic, meaning they are more likely to be associated with the effects of multiple genes, in combination with lifestyles and environmental factors. Although complex disorders often cluster in families, they don't have a clear-cut pattern of recurrence risk. It is difficult to determine a person's risk of inheriting or passing on multifactorial disorders, but it is greater if more than one family member is affected, if the index case is severely affected, and if the relationship is closer to that index case. Complex disorders are also difficult to study and treat because the specific factors that lie behind their occurrence have not been identified. Examples of these disorders include bronchial asthma, essential hypertension, cleft lip and palate, non-syndromic congenital heart disease, diabetes mellitus, and a lot more. Non-traditional disorders are simply disorders that are inherited but cannot be explained by the well-known pattern of inheritance as single gene disorders and multifactorial inheritance. Mitochondrial inheritance is one of the disorders under the category of non-traditional inheritance. It is also known as maternal inheritance. It applies to mutations of genes in mitochondrial DNA. Because only ova contributes mitochondria to the developing embryo, mothers only can pass on mitochondrial conditions to their offsprings, whether males or females. An example of mitochondrial inheritance is Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. Genomic imprinting is another example of non-traditional inheritance. It is the phenomena by which certain genes are expressed in a parent of origin specific manner. Meaning, if the allele is inherited from the father is imprinted, it is thereby silenced, and only the allele from the mother is expressed. While if the allele from the mother is imprinted, then only the allele from the father is expressed. Lastly, uniparental disomy. Uniparental disomy occurs when a person receives two copies of a chromosome or a part of a chromosome from one parent and no copies from the other parent. This is the end of the first part of my lecture, and now to part 2.